Welcome back to the Mouse and Men, where we explore the grown-up side of Marvel. Today on the Mouse and Men, we are looking at the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. It's been out a while. Hopefully you've watched it. If not, stop right now because there will be spoilers involved in this review. As we go through this, be sure to let us know your thoughts by going to themouseandmen.com, where you can find links to all of our social media pages, to YouTube where we broadcast the podcast, and heck, while you're there, get our top 10 reasons for, or top 10 things for grown-ups to do in Walt Disney World. I am Bradley. I'm here with my co-caster Chris. Which one of us is the Falcon? Which one of us is the Winter Soldier?
I've always been kind of a winter guy. I appreciate the winter, but Bucky's character as the Winter Soldier is a bit of a bummer. Dreary, kind of like those winter days. So I kind of wish that I was the Falcon.
Well, you can be whichever one you want because I love both of these characters. I love being able to fly, having that left arm made out of vibranium, and Bucky's ability to stare people down. Fantastic.
Oh, he's got a great stare. That's a good point that I don't hear a lot of people talking about. But yeah, he's got some good brooding looks that he can give.
Yeah. So today we're just breaking down our review of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So let's get right into Marvel Land to talk about this series.
See, I like the fact that we wait a bit. Like, the series is out. You can go watch the series in its entirety at this point where we're doing a review.
Yeah.
And you and I have talked about doing, like, maybe every week we talk about a little bit more. But I like the idea that we are going to be talking about spoilers, but it's like, okay, it's been out for a bit. So if you haven't watched it up till this point, just pause this episode, versus you can't come and listen to the Mouse and Men anymore because every week we're going to be spoiling you with the latest, greatest thing that's coming out with a Marvel episode or a Star Wars Mandalorian episode or whatever it may be. But I also like thinking of a series like this in totality as far as each season that comes out versus looking at every episode and then pondering like, what is going to happen?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and my wife better pause it if she's listening to this on or near July 13th when it's released, because she and I are going back through. She's watching it for the first time. I'm watching it again. She's asking me all sorts of questions. I'm trying not to give anything away. So babe, pause, stop, just skip this episode, go to the next one. Unless you finished the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And Chris, you were saying something to me as we signed on. You like this because WandaVision was great. It was also very creative and really messed with your head for the first 4 episodes or so. This one, you jump right in, and Sam Wilson, the Falcon, is flying through somewhere in the Middle East. Fight scene with helicopters and planes and missiles and all that. And I mean, you're thrown right into that traditional Marvel blockbuster action from the get-go.
Yeah, I really, especially that first scene, man, it really did suck me in. The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, to me, is a bit more cerebral. Like, there's a lot of talking, there's a lot of plot, there's a lot of exposition that goes on. But I actually liked it. I appreciated that. Coming off of WandaVision, kind of like you're saying, WandaVision, it blew me away. My wife and I, every episode, were like, what did we just watch? We need to go back and watch it immediately to start looking for all these like hidden meanings and what's going on. But the Falcon and the Winter Soldier wasn't necessarily like that. It went right back to the way I felt when I would go watch an Avengers movie or something up to this point in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. You know, these characters that I've gotten used to, Bucky and Sam are characters in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that I am way more aware of than I was Wanda or Vision with that. So I like that WandaVision was so off and amazing, and it blew my mind every time I watched it. But I also like how the Falcon and the Winter Soldier feels like, okay, now I'm back in an Avengers movie, is what it feels like every time I watched an episode.
Well, what I love is getting to know these characters a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
My first interaction, was it really interaction? My first exposure to the Falcon, Sam Wilson, was in Ant-Man, because I did not watch the movies in order. I had seen Iron Man, probably 2 and 3 as well, and then hadn't watched many of the others, maybe any of the others. Saw Paul Rudd was in Ant-Man. I think it was on Netflix. I watched it. And so you meet Sam up on top of the Avengers campus. And I was like, who is this guy? In the wingsuit and all that. Couldn't really figure out what was going on. And it wasn't until I went back and watched all the movies in release order that I realized, oh, this is the Falcon. He's been introduced, and he's actually a pretty awesome character, not just some bouncer outside Avengers campus. So loved getting to see Sam's backstory, seeing what his home life is like. Really enjoyed getting to see some development with Bucky, because up until this point, you saw a little bit of his backstory in Captain America, the first Avenger, but that was it. I mean, he was a bad guy for a little while, and then he went off to Wakanda, became the White Wolf. Not getting a whole lot of that story. You just kind of have to piece it together. And now you get some of that backstory. You get to see that development, and really enjoyed seeing these two characters play off each other in this series.
Yeah, I agree. It's like we spent so many years, like over a decade, getting to know the main Avengers. And many of them had their own movie. Like right now, we're in the opening week, or I guess just past opening weekend of Black Widow.
Yeah.
Even having her own movie now as an Avenger. And so most of those characters we saw fleshed out in full movie form, if not being very well aware of who they are coming from the comics leading into it, if you were a reader of the comics growing up. And so some of those characters, like the Hulk, Iron Man, Spider-Man, Thor, I've just known about those my whole life. And so to now have these series where we go in depth with people like Vision and Wanda and Sam and Bucky, and now Loki, even finding out more about him and that whole world. It's so much fun now, because maybe Disney or Marvel realized we can't do a whole movie based on Bucky, because maybe people wouldn't come see it. But we can tie it into a Captain America and Bucky kind of thing, or Sam and Iron Man, and that's how we can get to know. But the fact that you were mentioning too, right before we went live, that like 10 full episodes to get to know these characters, I feel as intimate with Sam and Bucky as I do Thor or Hulk now, because I've had so much time to spend with them. And like when I first saw Bucky, for me, it was in Captain America, Winter Soldier. He was a bad guy, but now he's like one of my favorites. Like I just love seeing him on screen. I love seeing him as like one of the guys that's going to be supporting everybody, whether it's how he used to support Captain America way back in the day, being best friends with Captain America, or it's now being buddies with Sam, and that friendship that's growing. So it's so cool that we can take the time to get to know these people through the series now.
Well, and their relationship is one that was kind of forced, because Bucky was Steve Rogers, the first Captain America's best friend growing up. Then we thought he died, and now Sam Wilson becomes Steve Rogers' best friend. And so then they kind of meet, because it's Steve Rogers past and present. They're kind of forced into this relationship. a little rocky at first, maybe. But then, Sam thinks, okay, I've been given Captain America's shield. It doesn't feel like mine. I'm going to give it to the Smithsonian as kind of this piece to say, I don't know, that we can live, let's live like Steve Rogers and try to find the best solution for everybody. Then the US
kind of giving it to the people by putting it at a museum. Let everybody enjoy this instead of it just being something that is kept to a select few people.
Yeah. And then the U.S. government gets drunk on Johnny Walker Red, gives the shield to a guy named John Walker, because you could only do that if you're drunk. Hey, let's get another Captain America. Then Bucky, who has not answered any of Sam's texts or phone calls, gets so mad at seeing, the shield's just been given to this Joker, tracks down Sam and says, "What the heck are you doing?" And now they're kind of forced back into fighting bad guys. So it's interesting to see that relationship develop over the series. And 10 episodes at about 45 minutes each. You're looking at 7.5 hours. That's more than 2, long movies. That's about 3 movies worth of content, of screen time. So give me more series, give me fewer movies. I'm totally okay with it. WandaVision was great. Getting to see their relationship, and now you've got the Falcon and the Winter Soldier. You and I are both watching Loki. That review to come. Don't worry, you got time to catch up. I mean, there's all sorts of series slated to be released later this year, next year. I'm really excited about the series. Really excited about Disney taking advantage of this Disney Plus platform of a way to give us Marvel fans what we want.
Yeah. And when I watch one of the episodes of the series, whether it's WandaVision or now Loki or the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I do realize that I'm watching something that's 30 minutes or 45 minutes at a time. But I don't feel like that I'm being shortchanged by watching something that's premiering on Disney Plus in series format versus being on, is kind of what you were saying a second ago. Like, give me more of that. If we can go 450 minutes to really go into detail on the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, all that detail that you can go into. And so for me now, knowing more of Sam and his backstory and his family and where he's from and what makes him tick, it makes more sense to see the decisions that he makes. I love it. Again, when the Falcon and the Winter Soldier opens in that first episode, and there's that scene where he's flying around and there's the helicopters and the planes and everything, like, it feels like a movie moment. It doesn't feel like that, like, well, we're getting a smaller version because we're watching something on the small screen. No, it just feels like this is movie quality. It's just being told in a different time format, which I love.
Which, since you kind of brought up scenes again, one of my favorite scenes, just watched it the other night with as we're going back through the series. The Falcon, Sam has just left for this mission. Bucky's going with him. Sam kind of doesn't want him there, but Bucky's like, "I'm going anyways." Sam jumps out of the plane. Bucky looks at the other guy in the plane and says, "Where's the chute?" And he's like, "Well, we're at 200 feet. It's too low for chutes." And he's like, "All right, I'm just jumping." He's like, "Are you crazy?" He just jumps out of a plane and smacks on the ground, like he just fell off the top bunk of a bunk bed. It's like, so yes, I will take being the Winter Soldier. You can have the Falcon's wings, which are pretty cool too. You get red wings.
No, they're very cool.
Spy drone. So, so John Walker, the new Captain America, it's I can't remember his name, but it's Kurt Russell's son who's playing John Walker. And
is that who that is?
It is. And I can't remember his first name, but if you look at him, it's like, oh yeah, that looks like Kurt Russell. He does
I can see it. Yeah.
He does a fantastic job because you just want to hate him. Because you don't like how he's being Captain America. And so props to him for playing such a great kind of misguided character. But I love that Zemo coming in and playing, I mean, he Zemo has good intentions, but in the movies before, he was so driven by rage and revenge that you just hated the character. Now, he's been shown a little bit of grace. The good guys broke him out of jail. Love seeing that character development as well. I don't know, just seeing Sam and Bucky work together to take that shield back is just a great. I mean, that's kind of the plot with this other thing with kind of I don't know how you describe it, but the uprising. The uprising kind of being that catalyst to bring those two guys together. Mm-hmm. I love the storyline.
Yeah, man, I agreed. I feel like that regardless of if it's people from the uprising or it's Zemo, who you're supposed to hate, or the Winter Soldier who you used to hate, or the Falcon, who's like, what is he doing in this position? Because like Steve Rogers isn't there anymore, a Captain America who we're used to, but we get to see all these different levels of humanity, and that nobody is necessarily all bad and not everybody is necessarily all good. There are these decisions, there are compromises. They're working with people that you used to root against in the stadium of watching it in a movie theater kind of thing. And that's one of the things that's so beautiful, I think, about this series in particular, is it goes to a lot of political places, but it does so on such a human level to where, at least for me watching it, I was realizing that like, oh, some of these themes, these are like wildly political for something like a Disney or a Marvel to take on. But when I saw the series in its entirety, I was so thankful that they did take on such a large and sticky subject like race in America, the plight of just individuals that are trying to do similar things, and the barriers you come into simply by the color of your skin, and those difficult things that it started to address. At first, I was like, oh, how are they going to deal with this without possibly being called out or canceled altogether, or what may be the case. But seeing everything in its entirety, I thought it did such Disney, Marvel, the actors, the people behind the scenes making this series did such a good job of handling a very touchy subject in a very human way to show that, like, as we all are progressing forward, as like the overarching message here is that we're talking about who's taking Captain America's place and who should take their place, and who, quote unquote, looks like they should take their place versus who has deserved it, or who has been given the shield from Captain America himself as the next guy. And they were like, no, we're not going to take the guy that Steve Rogers said should be. We're going to find somebody who meets the criteria as us, as the government or whatever. And all of those sticky interplays of like, do you call the people that are coming against them terrorists, or are they just fighting to stay alive and to not be othered or whatever it may be? Like, they did such a good job handling so many difficult conversations and sticky subjects that I was so impressed that it was very political. Probably the most political thing that I can at least remember that especially Marvel, but maybe even Disney, has ever really broached in some of these larger subjects. But and maybe I'm being short-sighted and not thinking about everything that's out there. But I applaud everybody that was a part of the Falcon and the Winter Soldier for handling it with not just there to make a political statement, but to handle it with humanity. Because I kept walking away from each episode loving the characters and agreeing with Well, now I see why they're making those choices.
Yeah.
Or not even taking into consideration some of the stuff that I was looking at because of my privilege, you know? And so it was just such an interesting thing that they handled it in an entertaining way and in a Marvel Avengers kind of way, but then in a very human way as well. So I'll get off my soapbox there, but I was just impressed across the board because it doesn't seem like, for the most part, that something like WandaVision, that wasn't the point. It wasn't the point to get political. It was just to show what happens when things go awry. But this is like, it was really in your face, the political part of it, but not in a way that didn't make me feel like they were trying to do anything other than to challenge my thinking. They weren't trying to change me. They were trying to challenge people with what was on screen. So I was very impressed.
Well, couple of things. One, Black Panther started a little bit of that with I can't remember. It's the cousin who was on Earth or who was in the US who comes to Wakanda talking about that struggle.
Oh, right.
This kind of builds on that. And going along with what you said, it all kind of comes to a beautiful tension climax there in the last scene where Sam, as the Falcon, has now embraced his call to be the new Captain America, and he's challenging the white people in power to think about why they make these decisions. Why? And the way that Sam does it is with empathy. And instead of being critical of the leadership, he's asking them to think critically. And I've just been reading about the difference between being critical and thinking critically. And it's a fine line. Being critical always ends up being negative, but thinking critically, trying to step back and take some of the emotion out of it. That's what he does. He takes some of that emotion out of it so that I can actually hear what he's saying. And that thanks to the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, I am seeing a different side to issues. That even though I tried to see that side before, for some reason now it's starting to click. And so I just love the way it all kind of came together. I really hope to see Sam as Captain America in some more series, some more movies. I love this new version of Captain America. He's different than Steve Rogers. Sam Wilson is different than Steve Rogers, but it's still that same mindset of I want to do right for the right reasons. Unlike this uprising with Carly and the Flag Smashers, who are trying to do the right thing, but with the wrong means. Hurting innocent people, trying to use brute force instead of diplomacy. Yeah.
I like that. Potato.
Yeah. When you start talking like this, when you hit record, you never say anything right. It's like writing on a whiteboard. You can never spell anything correctly, but who knows why? But I just
can't spell things correctly or stay on a straight line. It always starts.
It goes one way or the other. But I just love the way this series wraps. I don't need a season 2. This was awesome. I think it just sets up a new Captain America. I hope it sets up a new Captain America for Phase 4 and beyond. I also hope I get Bucky in that stare. It's just so intimidating, and you don't know which side of the fence he's on when he's staring you down like that.
One of those last speeches, or the last speech that he gave that you were referring to, that he did with such empathy, I love that he actually brings up Carly in that message. Like I actually love Sam and Carly's relationship because he was trying to show her that, like, I don't agree with what you're doing, but I agree why you're doing something. I just don't think that you're going about it the right way. And he was really trying to let her see that he could be somebody to be trusted. And I think seems to be too late before she could actually learn that lesson. But he was saying,
well, it's all because old drunk Johnny Walker comes in before Sam could finish doing what he was trying to do.
Yeah, I agreed. But him saying that like she died and that nobody's really paying attention. Nobody's even asking why.
Yeah.
That like, because she just looked like somebody who was on the opposite side of the majority of the people that were making the decisions, then she must be the bad guy. And he was saying it was like, I don't really agree with what she did, but if she was willing to die for what she believed in. And we're not even saying, should we look at that? Should we look at ourselves in light of a group of people that are willing to die just to go against the things that we say that we should be pushing to the forefront of our, a national ideal? And I think that that's such an interesting thing to leave it with as a viewer watching it. It's like, wow, people do make decisions. And I, growing up in America, and just would look at something and read it in a textbook and go, oh, we beat these people, or we were against these people, so those people were the enemies. And so when you think about it, again, going back to the humanity of it, when you think that these people who you are against, whether they're on a different soccer team or watching the Olympics coming up here in a few weeks, or at a war or something, it's like we look at them as the other. When they are looking at, like, we're still humans, we're still all humans with just different ways of trying to go about things. And to look at the humanity versus just looking at a person and saying, oh, because of their skin color or their ethnicity or the place in which they were born in the world, they're my enemies. Like, for me, that does not necessarily make an enemy. Yeah. So I was really appreciative of how they handled that with such care, and then still got the message across without feeling like it was overly preachy or trying to beat you on the head. It was like, no, we are moving forward with a new way based on, like, you thought that you could just give John Walker the shield and that he would immediately fall into that Captain America role. John Walker, Steve Rogers, they even sound kind of like, woo, American white guy kind of thing to deal with it. They assumed that would be the person who would be best. But much like Steve Rogers, Sam comes from a place of, he does it from a place, it seems to be selflessness, where John Walker was more involved with how does it make him look to now be Captain America. So it was like a selflessness versus a selfishness, and how that really doesn't play well if you're going to take on the shield of Captain America, if you're going to do it for selfish means. Yeah.
I mean, Steve Rogers as a scrawny little kid, Bucky gets drafted or enlists, or I can't remember exactly how that worked out. And then Steve can't get into the Army, the Navy, anything to save his life. He just wants to help. Mm-hmm. Steve Rogers only just wants to help. Sam was not looking to be a superhero. He was just a pilot who, got to pilot this pretty special thing. It turned out it worked for what Steve Rogers as Captain America was trying to do. So yeah, both of them not looking to be superheroes. That's a good way to start with, for the recipe for a good superhero. Chris, just want to ask, how would you rate this series? I'm not asking you, is it the best ever, but how, do you like it? Do you love it? Just how do you rate it?
Yeah, this is what I like. I liked the series. I loved the message and how they handled that. So it came on the heels of WandaVision, and we've talked about that a bit on this show before. The fact that, like, WandaVision, it just blew me away. It was bizarre. It was different. It was confusing, but it blew me away on all the different levels. Just because I'd never really seen anything like that in entertainment. The way that they handled going back and doing different sitcoms and different different decades and all that. So it, like, every time I watched a WandaVision episode, I watched it kind of with my mouth open, like, what am I watching right now?
Yeah.
I appreciated how this felt like it was just a phase 3 or whatever of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, that this was just a new thing that we're kind of learning, but it felt more like I was watching a typical Avengers movie. And so because it felt a bit more of like the typical Avengers movie, I was able to relax a bit more and just sit back and enjoy it. And so because of that, it was good. I really did like it. But the messaging, and especially now looking back at the whole series, I love the message that it brought forth. And so it was like WandaVision and Loki. I don't even know what's going to happen. I don't even know if I'm watching TV anymore. Am I like in some sort of bizarro universe?
Right.
But this was very much rooted in the best of what the Marvel Cinematic Universe brings to the table. So because of that, I was able just to relax a bit more and just go, okay, this is more of watching a Captain America movie or a new Iron Man or an Avengers or whatever. And so that's why I would say probably good for that. But the messaging and actually what it told from a series perspective, I was really blown away at the messaging and how they handled everything. What about you?
Yeah. Just like Siskel and Ebert, 2 thumbs up. I think they did a great job. I wouldn't want to change anything. I'm never good at saying, there's a, incomplete story loop here or holes in the story over here. I thought it was great. I like how, even with WandaVision, this as well picks up at that same time period. I mean, do Sam and Bucky have any idea what Wanda's doing over in Westview? No idea. But 2 thumbs up. Love it. I love watching it again. So if you made it this far, sorry for giving away the ending. If you haven't seen it, go watch it. And if you have seen it, go watch it again, because you will pick up stuff just like watching the movies again. You'll pick up on stuff that you didn't pick up the first time. It's great. So what are we going to do for plussing this week? Well, it's time to find out. Chris, talk to us about plussing. You brought this to the table. I think you've watched it. I have not watched it yet. Tell me about Assembled.
So Assembled is kind of what they did it for WandaVision, and now they've done it for Falcon and the Winter Soldier as well, which is basically a behind the scenes look at catching you up with the characters so you know what's going on, and then kind of behind the scenes. One of my favorite things to do ever since the advent of DVDs, or at least the first DVD that I bought because I got The Matrix. It's probably 1999 or so when I bought it. That was the first DVD that I owned. And one of the reasons I loved it, not only because of the movie, but because of the behind the scenes things that you could dive into. Yeah. And I felt like for one of the first times, HBO used to do this, like kind of, it was like, kind of get you excited about a movie. It was more than a trailer. It showed behind the scenes and interviews with cast and crew and some commentary. I always have loved that. Sometimes if I really like a movie, I used to buy it on DVD and I would watch it first when I finally had it at home and get excited. And then I would immediately start over watching it with the commentary track.
Yeah.
And so the Assembled series that they are doing through Marvel about some of these TV shows or these series, I keep wanting to call it TV shows because that's how I used to call things that came on TV. But now I'm just calling it series because who knows what this actually is. I mean, These could be shown in the movies and I wouldn't skip a beat. I love those types of behind the scenes interviews with cast and crew, some commentary of what's going on. Let's see how they pulled off these cool tricks or movie magic moments. And so for any of those that have watched Falcon and the Winter Soldier and love that, but then also want to see some behind the scenes stuff, please dive into Assembled because they're always great. Again, Disney and Marvel, I've just gotten to the point now where I could confidently say they really don't steer you wrong. They just produce everything with high quality entertainment value is off the charts. And they know their audience. They know that me as a fan of these characters want to see more and want to learn more about them. And they do a really good job of that in Assembled.
Well, you know what else won't steer you wrong is our top 10 things for grown-ups to do at Walt Disney World. Go ahead and download that over at the mouseandmen.com.
Heck yeah.
You can find links to our social media. You can find links to our YouTube channel. You can also go find our new TMAM Digest blog post. We're going back and creating blog posts where you can read about each of these episodes. Same content, just a little bit different format. If we're covering something that maybe you want to try in the parks, you can go back and just get a refresher. So visit that because it'll be more populated as we get caught up. But just want to encourage you. Remember how much we love superheroes as kids? We can love superheroes as adults now. I just want to encourage you not to grow up too fast.
But keep exploring, everybody. You gotta keep exploring.